True. Oh, he doesn't want to fucking answer. He doesn't want to answer the question.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Because they're both
That's crazy.
terrible.
It's
It's
good.
crazy. Come on.
It's wild,
After
dude.
all these years.
You just met me. You're really loyal to me. I'll give you a golden card.
Oh my god. What? We got some
What?
Teletubbies up in here.
Up in this bitch.
Look at me. Do I look that bad? Look at me. Look at me.
Ashton, just. Oh, we gotta fix the gen. I know it to be. I know where to go.
What is this, fucking Dead by Daylight?
Oh, we did play this one.
Yeah, I told you that.
Ain't this like the default map?
No, this is the second one.
Oh.
Oh, I gotta turn my
Yeah.
graphics down.
Get a new computer.
I need a new computer.
Steal one.
Nah.
I found a snowmobile.
Everybody wishes it would be that easy, my guy.
I found a
Alright, so I'm gonna be
snowmobile.
waiting up the gate for you guys at the front door.
Okay, pal.
What?
Honestly, I thought you were a monster with how terrible.
Oh my god, there's a mine. Thank god I went in here.
Get in my motorcycle.
The yellow Teletubby.
Man, the racism is crazy.
Alright, where the fuck is this
Why?
guy, bro? Where the fuck is this
A
guy?
little bit, a little bit. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right here, right here, right here. You're right. I see him. He's standing outside menacing
Wait,
me.
how'd you get a flashlight?
Alright, kill him.
What the? Don't turn that on. I found it, Ash. How do you
Beep.
think?
To the right.
Beep.
Oh no, it's this map. Ash, you know which one this is, right?
That's just the one that was like big spider lady.
No, that's the one after this.
I'm not doing that one. I'm just gonna put that out there. The class.
Why, you don't like spiders?
I hate spiders.
Yeah, neither. I hate spiders too. So.
I blame the vegans.
What I gun?
Nope.
That. Why?
You've been restricted from owning firearms.
I want something. I just want anything. There's like no weapons or anything.
I've got a gun. I want to see this new sniper scope. Oh shoot, it's kind of glitchy. No, it's better than it was, so I'm not gonna complain about
Hey, Ash, look what I found.
it. He found a gun.
Put your hands up. Put your hands up.
Oh yeah? Oh yeah?
I know you stole the files. Oh god. Be in there with your own vices, buddy.
Somehow we have our own codes already.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, put that little puny revolver down.
No. Put yours down.
What is this?
Actually, no, shoot me. I dare you.
I
I dare you.
No, you shoot me.
I dare you. I dare you to shoot me.
I dare you to shoot me.
What's the ice
I dare
pick
you.
for?
I dare you. No,
What's
nuh-uh.
the do?
Yeah, that's what I thought, pussy.
Oh, shit.
Well, I don't wanna waste my ammo.
Yeah, neither do I.
Obviously. No one wants to waste their ammo.
I would have shot you,
That's
low
good.
key. I was just trying to see if you were man enough to do it.
You are?
Hell yeah.
Do it.
No, you. Oh fuck, you did it.
EVP is off.
Fuck.
Yeah, I made sure of that.
Now, why would you do such a foolish thing?
The vending machines give
Because
you
of the-
perks now.
I
Because of
just,
people like you.
I just took my blood by accident to test myself.
If you go to
What?
a vending machine, you can get your perk that way. You don't just automatically have it.
Oh shoot, you're kidding me, right?
It's a perk machine.
Oh, it's random too.
Oh, for me, it gave me the whatchamacall.
Oh yes, that one. I love the whatchamacall.
Yeah, the whatchamacall is a really good perk. It's definitely S tier.
It's one of the best.
It does have a little bit of a drawback, and that's why it's not S plus.
Where
But
is
I
this
mean,
Watch you fucking die right after. Hey Ash, I have
That's
3
good,
guns. I have
Nice.
the snipper, the MP5,
How's-
and the pistole.
How's hacking? You like hacking? How'd you do that?
Don't you worry about how I
You
do what I
guys
do.
hack?
Hell yeah, dude! I pulled up Weemod. I'm a dancing.
Wow.
I'm dancing.
Why is there a thing on my on my screen?
Can I stop fucking dancing? Thank you. Come here. Come here. You wanted
Which
this?
one?
You.
One what? I already have that.
Oh. I'll use it to kill Ash if I need to.
Oh yeah, no, that will definitely be happening. You see, Ash gets infected a lot, so
Really?
That's
Yeah,
not
they'll-
true.
yeah.
That's not
I can
true.
preemptively
it's
slime
definitely
Ash
true.
out right now.
it's definitely true.
It'll be a clickbait wordy sliming.
Let me just turn this on real quick. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Oh, I can't.
What is that? A thermonuclear warhead?
How do you start it?
All right. Ash, get to moving.
How do you start it?
Chop chop, pal.
How do you start it?
Push G, Ash.
D. It's not working.
G.
G. It's not working.
I'll do
Wait,
it.
I?
Someone else do it.
It's out of fuel.
Oh, great.
No. Oh, you left it on. Okay.
Uh,
Well,
What is
we
it?
gotta go
Oh,
this
wait,
way
I
now.
don't want to turn that on.
Well, it's becoming nighttime and we're all dead. How do you guys feel about that?
You'll be dead first.
I don't accept that. I'd like a second opinion.
Well, the second opinion is Ashton, you get to create it. What's your second opinion?
So we eat Red Rex first.
Interesting.
Eat.
Eat. Well, well, well.
What? If we get hungry, we get hungry. You know?
I've always been down for a little cannibalism.
I don't like that idea.
I
How
don't
about a
fucking
third
care.
one?
I don't
Yeah,
fucking
how
care.
about a
No.
third- how about a
No.
third one?
No. You said Ash's second opinion was the final opinion.
I didn't say it was final. I just said that he should create one. you
No,
know?
no, it's too late, buddy.
It's the one and only opinion that we need.
You can take it to the Supreme Court if you want, but they'll just ignore you. Your choice, really. But if you go for a third opinion, it's me giving that opinion, and you won't like it. You want the third
don't think
opinion?
What's that third opinion?
You want the third opinion?
Oh,
I don't think the third
yeah,
opinion.
let's do that.
Summarily execute his entire family.
Oh, okay. Oh, Ashton, that's not a good uh-oh. What happened here?
Someone
How
died.
how about we just not die out here? Come on, and we'll be fine.
Yep.
You see,
You asked for the third opinion. I provided you the third opinion. Not much you can do.
I found fuel.
So did I.
a shotgun with
Something to drink?
all ammo in it. All right, we need to keep moving though, or we're gonna die.
Yeah.
What if we
Like,
don't die?
My legs are getting cold.
Yeah, my legs are cold too, Ash. You know, I'm gonna start a fire. Give me a second.
Can you? I have a way to
Yes.
start it.
Oh, you can't. Oh, that's stupid.
But you
What
can
is
pick
this?
up classified
Anybody
material.
want a submachine gun or a shotgun? There's some
do.
nice.
I'll take a shotgun.
Hold on, I need to do something.
Don't mind me. Just dancing.
Did you just kill us? Ashton, why?
Oh my god. Did we all just die?
I died. What, Ashton? What the heck was that? I never said a fourth option, my guy.
No, this counts.
I never gave you the fourth option. If
I
anybody
swear I
should create the
threw
fourth
it,
option, it was
Well,
me. No.
I guess the hitbox are a little weird. So.
No, you legit assassinated us and killed yourself too.
Didn't need to. I have to rejoin? Sure. Okay.
Oh, you do?
No, you got
Well, you
play
said
it.
you invited me. I thought you would.
Oh no, I didn't. Invite
Oh
you,
no,
invite
the thing invites you automatically.
I didn't know that.
me. Yeah.
So it seems like it kills the server that it creates and then recreates a new one.
Interesting.
Alright, so for future reference, if you have a grenade, make sure you go far away from something, so it doesn't like hit the hitbox.
Yeah, Ash, we could have been you know, out there by now. We could have collected all the samples and stuff.
You're in bed, so you're
And-
creeping, Mead. I see, I see.
Am I in a tree?
Yes.
Okay. Forgot how this works.
All right, keep moving.
Oh, why are we here?
Because you killed us.
Real.
That was just bad.
I believe you, Mead. I believe you're in bed.
Come on, you're like free falling forever. What is this?
What?
I'm beating my shit.
Falling. Wait, look at me, look at me.
Give me a second. I'm looking for stuff.
Wait. Ah, you. Never mind. Not like you
What?
don't like that anymore.
Oh, good. That's a good thing. I don't think I want to be free falling forever.
200 push-ups. Fuck yes, Mead, bro. That's good. That's a win. That's a
Well, there's
win.
nothing here. I guess we're moving on.
Man, it's a pretty bad spot, come on.
I didn't pick it. You did. By
Huh?
killing
Be
us.
hot.
You did.
Oh my god, I can be hot.
Of course you can be up.
Oh no.
You don't have
This
the.
is bad,
Oh
guys.
god, Mead.
Oh, we're dead. Oh,
Oh shoot.
I'm dead. I'm so dead. I'm so dead.
How do you get on the ice? There we go.
You don't have the strength to goon my voice tonight. That's a quote.
What?
Oh, where'd you go?
You
I
died.
kept going forward.
Okay.
Mead, I'm gonna put
What,
that
you
in the
thought I would
co-channel
die
later.
that easy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Nah.
I'm gooning.
60?
Yeah, just in case.
What? What'd you say?
What?
One thing I've never done is fake a trick shot.
What is this thing? What is that? What
Classified
is
material?
that?
What are you doing without us?
He's clip farming without us right now.
Oh shoot.
What are you guys doing? Is that even you? Oh god.
Oh, there you are. Oh, okay.
Hello, liberal.
Anything good here?
Did you not see the big man right here?
Oh, big man.
We ignore people. Who's that?
Oh, whoa.
That's you in 2 years.
That's fucking crazy. We don't fat shame. That hurts feelings.
I don't think that guy was fat before. It just looks like he got bloated because of the cold.
I don't know, man, but he's been dead for a fucking while.
He looks like he's from the Forest game.
He does. He does.
Sons of the Forest.
Alright, where are we going?
Put the fucking gun down. Put the fucking gun down.
You wanna go?
Fine,
to-
I'll do it the
where you wanna
old-fashioned
go?
way.
Oh!
Fire.
Outpost
Alright.
32, Colts Church.
We'll go to Outpost 32,
Okay.
and then we'll go to this man's church.
Thank you. We'll remain there for the remainder of the game.
Oh, I don't know about that. We're gonna get killed by the Apex.
I
We're getting so diddled.
well, I
That's
mean,
it. You're gonna get killed.
holy
If
shit.
you speak him into existence,
Wait,
he'll
I can't
appear.
see- I can't see my like body in the top left. Can you?
The
Yeah, I can, I'm
diddler.
about to die.
The diddler's right in front of you.
Did I like turn it off somehow?
You had to have. You probably turned off the HUD. I don't remember how to do it, but you can.
It's really laggy around these parts.
It's not laggy for me.
Just turn off your computer.
Oh, thanks, man.
What is this? This should be cool, right?
What? I can't see you.
Oh, you can't see that power? Must be like right here somewhere.
I hear a vegan near us.
Oh, really? What is a
highly
vegan
doubt-
sound
I
like?
highly doubt they're vegan.
I'm vegan. That's how they sound like.
Interesting, interesting. I don't think you'll be hearing that from these woods.
Why not?
I think you'll be hearing a lot of noises you don't want to be hearing. Bro, why is it all walled off? This is not good.
I was at the white party last Tuesday. I'll be fine.
Dude, I'm about to die because of frostbite.
I can't even see my meter, dog.
It's because you're already
about to die.
dead.
For sure. Yeah.
I got the perk that. Oh wait, hold up. I don't have any perks. Yo, we're so
Oh,
fucked.
we're so dead.
We're so fucked.
Oh wait, there's a tree right here. Climb the tree. Wait.
Oh, I've been winning. I've been wanting this
Oh, we
game.
can't.
You should get it.
Oh, this one. This one.
You can't.
Oh, you're kidding me.
That's some bullshit.
Oh, I'm so dead. Wait, what's this then? What is this?
This is a satellite, or Outpost 82.
Now how come we can't get inside?
Because we're not in the right spot to enter. This is it right here, I bet. Alright, here we go.
I'm so dead. It's to my like, it's nearly to my neck right now.
Dude, just turn on the heat.
I'm about
Get the
to.
generator, get the generator.
I
No,
am
go
about
inside.
to.
Go inside. Go inside. Go inside. I'll get the generator.
No. Okay. Well, we can't get inside without you doing the generator, so...
You should get headliners.
My hand's about to fall off.
He's got it. He's got it.
Oh,
Please.
There's a turret, there's a turret, there's a turret.
You mean a mine? Disable it.
It's definitely a turret.
Where'd it go?
I moved it.
Ashton! No! No!
I don't want to alarm you.
But the fire that you made, it's warming me up, my guy. I appreciate it. Oh!
What the fuck is that thing?
Oh, it's me.
Get out of me! Ah!
Go away.
Run! I think you bit me. I think you bit me. Oh, that hurt.
Come do the test. Come do the test. Come do the COVID test.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
Okay,
oh my
I think
god,
good.
this is so cool.
The laptop's here. The laptop's here for
Ashton, I'm gonna
reinforcements.
kill you, okay?
The laptop's here for
You need to spot
reinforcements.
him back
So
in.
cool. I have infrared. I have infrared.
Where are you?
Oh, you're kidding me. I can't just spawn Ashton in anymore.
Ashton.
I know.
I can evolve? How do I evolve?
Oh no, Ashton's gonna become the apex.
Oh, I have a beer belly.
Oh no.
Allahu Akbar.
Where
I
is he?
see you guys.
Where? Ashton, please.
Ashton.
Listen, let me just cure you, okay?
Yeah, Ashton, we can be friends. Why can't we be friends? Why can't
see
we be friends? Ashton, come inside this room. Ignore the laser. Just come inside this room. I can't disarm the traps.
If you see him, we smoke him, okay?
Oh, hold R to reposition. Wait, when I right click, if I right click, I can sit down.
You see him in here?
Nope. Do you?
No.
Found a shotgun.
This is scary.
We gotta get rid of the traps.
Yeah.
You want to disarm them?
I guarantee he's in here. I
got
guarantee.
my dogs out right now.
Traps out.
Okay. Did you just
Hey,
hear
the
him?
last time you saw
Yep.
me, I ain't looking like that no more. All right.
I just.
Oh
I'm moving the trap. How do I put down the trap?
no. Okay, move it in front of the door.
How? How do I put it down? I just did. Down.
I hear him walking outside. Ah!
How do I?
Jesus,
how-
I'm bleeding out. I'm bleeding out. Oh god.
How do you activate the trap?
God.
How do you activate the trap?
You hold
I'm
these.
dying. I'm dying.
This is so fire. This is fun. I like this.
Am I dead?
Are you dead?
Okay, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, 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 God, you really got me there.
Our initial trap is out. Our initial trap is out. There's another. There's another one right here. I can't get this one. There's another one right here.
Oh shoot.
yeah,
Okay,
I'm like
let me.
I got it.
grab Ash. Oh my god, that was scary.
Okay, I'm back alive though. I'm back. I'm back.
Hey, push your fucking hands up! Push your fucking hands up!
Boy, that was so peak.
You're welcome.
No, you almost killed me twice.
I should die again.
No, no.
What do you mean no?
It's actually scarier when a player is playing as one of those things.
I bet it is. I bet it is. Is there anything I can like have that you guys haven't picked up? Wow.
Guys. Oh god, there's one here.
Close that door. I'm getting in the
I
bathroom.
can't.
Close that door. Kicks the door open.
I'm getting in the bathroom.
I'm arming the last trap. I'm arming the last trap.
I think I got it.
Somewhere
think-
safe to come out.
The thing, it definitely does. Hold up. Armor in the trap.
Okay, I'm watching over you.
I hear walking outside.
I hear it. It's outside. It's outside. It's outside.
Oh my god, there it is. It got me. It got me. Nope. It's a lot. It's dead. It's dead.
Where is it? Where is it?
Just clearing it. No, watch out. No, watch out. Watch out.
You motherfucker.
Oh, he's dead.
Wait, he's about to respawn. He's about to respawn.
Oh no, you're right. I shoot. Back up. Back up. Back up. Ashton, here. Take that.
I passed
Have
away.
that flashlight out. Have that flashlight out.
Ashton, take this. Take this
What is
weapon.
this? What is this? On the floor.
I don't know. I'm taking a picture.
Is that what you're doing? Okay.
Ashton, take this flamethrower right now.
How do you drop stuff? Okay, there. Where is he? Where is he? He should be in here. Where
I don't know. Are you dead?
We need the flashlight. Forward. Forward.
I'm not dead, but I can definitely not see ahead of me.
It is just... Oh my god. Ashton, get ready to light it
I
up.
need the flashlight. I need the
You're
flashlight. I
right.
can't see nothing.
He ran out.
Why is it so dark, dude? I can't see shit.
Push space.
I'm pushing space.
That should give you infrared. Like, vision. Oh!
Oh.
Oh, hell no. That I threw my gun. I was so scared.
Where'd you go?
Okay.
I threw my gun. I'm
Hold
looking for it.
R.
Wait, was that not you?
What do you mean?
Yeah.
That wasn't him.
How many people? I don't know actually. How many people can play this game, guys?
Whoa.
Yeah,
Be careful, be careful.
I can't see anything, guys. It's too dark for some reason.
Disarm that, Ash. Disarm that.
It tells you the controls on the top.
I'm
right,
pressing
and you
spacebar and it doesn't turn on.
Oh, that sucks.
So cooked.
Dude, come on. That was so scary when that one came through.
Dude, you have no idea when you were running around.
That wasn't
Oh,
even
I
him.
thought. No, I thought. No, no. Get rid of that. Get rid of that. There's
I
nothing
can
in there.
kind of see myself.
What are you, Roma?
If you take a look at my, I can kind of see myself, but I don't know where I am or what I am. I'm not stuck either.
Are you? Did you evolution?
I don't
Oh,
know.
because it's.
What at the top? Where does it say? What's at the top?
Attack,
Control
reset attack, space for infrared, left shift to
help me.
sprint, hold R to reposition. Every time I press spacebar,
Oh!
Maybe take a rest. Where are you? Where are you? Whoa. Maybe try resting and then just spam jump and stuff and try to move around. I couldn't move either. If you're stuck.
no,
Oh, I was right there for a sec.
doesn't seem like I'm
Actually,
stuck.
you need to protect me.
Protect you.
Protect me, my guy.
Protect you. Am I dancing? Oh yeah.
I have no weapon.
You have no weapon here. I got you.
What did you give me? Okay, you know
Give
it's
you a-
it's
you
too
want that
fair.
too?
Oh yeah.
Here, I'm holding the flashlight out for you so you can see down there.
What? Wait, don't you have guns? Give me the flashlight.
They have one gun. but yeah, here.
Exactly. So you should be the one being able to see down there while holding
Well,
it
you know,
out.
I thought you would lob the. I can't see the flashlight right now.
Well, because that was my old one.
I still can't see it. Did you break
What the
it?
hell?
Let me see it. Let me see this one.
I should run. I should run.
You were gonna kill me?
I said run.
All right. I'll
I-
keep that
I-
in mind next time.
I said the flashlight's behind you. I'm not really sure why it's not working.
Can you see this? Oh wait, no.
No.
Where's the flashlight?
I said it was behind you. Right here.
Does that work?
Tell me. Oh wait, no. I don't think it's.
Yeah, I'm like
Just
stuck,
go out.
bro.
Should we come kill
Are you like spectating or are you like?
No,
like,
I'm
what are you? Are you a monster?
I'm controlling something, but I'm stuck.
Should we come kill you?
I don't know where I am.
Push. Can you open your map? Oh, we can't actually.
Nope.
Let me see your image. Let me go see your shit. See if your YouTube stream is fixed. Oh, it's like black on your screen. You can't see a thing.
No. And even when I press R to, reposition, nothing happens. I'm very confused.
I guess you can try and find you. I don't. You shouldn't be too far.
No.
Come on.
I swear. Oh no. You're making me come out here. Oh, we're so dead.
You think?
Turn on the
Can you
turn on the
change your
gen.
FOV? Is there an FOV? Oh, I'm at 120. Shoot. Wow. Okay. Shoot, we could. I don't know what to do.
Turn on the gen, Ash.
Go ahead, do it.
Actually, no. You cover my back. Cover my back.
I got a gun. Hit duck break.
Real.
We could restart.
You
Like,
want to
fully
restart?
Well, he can move. Or he sees
I think I
black.
can.
We don't
I
know.
think I can spawn him back in. I'm not sure.
Well, he's a monster.
Yeah, I still think I can grab him again. Wait, actually, is this you?
What?
Is this not you?
Where are you?
Inside.
Oh, I'm not inside. Now I am. But where are you?
Ashton, get over here.
That's not me. Oh my god. Kill it.
Get
over here.
Oh. Ashton, the revolving to look like you.
Wait, they can. There's like. Wait, that's even scarier, dog.
Oh
Ooh.
no.
Where are you? Is that you?
I went upstairs because, well, I felt safer upstairs. I'm disarming the ball.
What did I just hear?
Ashton. Ashton, get inside. Upstairs. Protect the, shoot the door. Shoot anything at the door.
Nothing's coming through.
Oh, that was scary. Piece of bacon, is it in her?
It looks like you can see some things on your stream.
Yeah, but I don't know what. It's myself, but where am I? Like I can attack. I press spacebar to toggle infrared. Nothing.
Oh, red?
No.
I guess we could reset.
Up to you guys.
I
I'm.
have to.
Well, I might have no choice.
What is that? Oh, that's a big boy.
I actually like can't do anything.
I think we should reset.
Okay.
Oh, hold up. Hold up. Oh, wait, what the fuck? Where am I?
Oh wait, this guy.
I'm like,
Can you see things now? It's like daytime. So like,
yeah, I'm running in place. I'm not controlling myself.
All right. Let's just restart. Let's just restart. Leave the game.
Okay.
Oh, what the fuck?
Wait,
I'm sitting there?
you're not even in the game. You're not even in the game.
What? I was in the game.
Wait.
It didn't show you on the right side.
You know,
Huh?
it didn't.
Player list.
Okay, that's a
Weird.
little
Okay.
fucking annoying. Let's do this again.
Okay, let's start. Let's start clean. Let's start clean. Yes, yes. Do we want enemies spawning during the day? Hello?
Nah.
Okay, okay.
Down.
Seven.
Okay, I'm sending invites now.
How many invites?
All of them.
10 billion.
To who?
Random people.
Smart move.
Hello, people. 1999.
Yeah, so do I actually. I actually like root beer. Yeah.
Root beer.
270 calories.
Now that's like the only type of. That's not a lot. Ash. Now for a soda, it is. The liquid calories are bad, but I mean. You're fine though. You're fine. It's like eating a bag of chips. You know.
Root beer.
We all in?
Yeah.
Maybe we are. Maybe we aren't. I don't know.
Encoding overload. Consider turning down video settings.
Doesn't sound good.
Turn that again.
Okay, let's.
That
do
doesn't
this,
sound good.
guys.
What if I don't want to do this?
Too bad.
What if I'm too scared to do this?
Well, you see, we're being forced to do this by the government.
I'm gonna drive.
The government's not real.
Ashton, are you a good driver or are you a bad driver?
I'm a great driver. Come on, where are you?
The government's
You're
not
a bad
real.
driver.
Ask
I'm not
Ashton.
hopping on.
Ashton knows my opinions about the government, right, Ashton?
What?
I said, ask Ashton my opinions about the government. Ashton knows my opinions.
He hates it or something.
The government's not real. You know what else is not real? The moon.
No, no, I'm not on. Hide and seek, crouching tremendously, roll
Dude,
again.
where are you?
Don't worry
Roll
about it.
again.
Oh my god, there's a bomb. There's a bomb. There's a bomb.
There's a bomb there.
I'm gonna
Turn off the. How do you turn it off again?
by turning it
You
off.
push E on it.
Push E on it.
I said
Take it
E.
out. How do you turn it off?
The bike? Oh, G. Or I.
B. Oh, I. It's definitely I.
Yo, there's a lot of shit in here, Ashton. I found a radio.
I have no idea where you guys are, but I found the power, which is what I was looking for.
I have no idea what I'm doing right now.
You're doing something.
Just don't die. I'm
Ashton.
hearing terrible stuff right now.
Ashton, I have a radio.
A radio? I didn't know it was wrong with you. You knew. Here, get on.
Are you guys in this little house right here? You are.
Oh god! Drive!
Get on. We already looted it. Get in the damn vehicle.
We can't. Only 2 can fit.
Sit in the back.
I can't sit in the back.
Stand in the back.
Try moving. Try moving. Wait, let me try it again. Go.
What?
No.
Block. I said we go to the
No, you guys-
underground power
You
plant
guys
or
can leave
vehicle
without
storage.
me.
Let's go to the vehicle storage. Where are you?
Where we store vehicles.
Come, come. This way. Follow the red lights.
Red light.
That was not a good idea to pull that now.
Okay, I'll put it away. Oh, it's gone. Okay.
Is this a bridge? Oh my goodness.
Is this new?
Yes, I built it last Tuesday.
Wow, you're a fast worker.
Thank you.
Even though it is some terrible work, but you know, I guess being fast doesn't always get the job 100% done.
Exactly.
Could be a little better.
Ask your grandmother.
Okay.
I went real quick. In and out. I think tomorrow is Chick-fil-A day.
Chick-fil-A.
I think tomorrow's Friday, right?
Yep.
I can enjoy Chick-fil-A day.
The bell. I think we had enough of the bell for one day.
Imagine having infamous dinner. Today, what did I have? Rouladen.
What's that?
What?
You don't know what rouladen is? Oh, well.
Yo, thermonuclear weapon right here, Ash. Thermonuclear weapon.
Oh hell yeah. Oh hell yeah. Gun too. Taking all of it.
It's a German food.
There's a heater in there.
It's basically really thin pork that's been wrapped up over pickles, which is really good. It's like really good. No, it's
Interesting.
good. It's good. Can't believe you would say something like that.
Sounds grotesque.
And then it's put into rice.
Is there a way to change what way your wheel scrolls in your hotbar?
Yes, by changing it.
Thanks, man. Really helped me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Least I could do.
I think you can though.
You say you can't?
Because I'm too used to Minecraft, so when I go down, it goes the wrong way.
Oh yeah, I see that. I didn't notice that before. I guess I just didn't care.
I don't want to alarm anyone, but the opposition are nearby.
What do you mean, where?
The ops are nearby.
Oh. And they have it out for
That's-
Ash.
I need to go use the bathroom, so I'm gonna be right back.
This motherfucker.
Ashton, get inside first.
I'm over here.
Oh yeah. Okay. Okay, you're good.
This
Yeah.
motherfucker and his goddamn priorities.
All right, I say that we leave him.
I say we just fucking kill him. Rechargeable battery. Roll again.
I've got 2 perks now. I feel good. I've got health regeneration and
I got gas guzzler. Luckily for me, I love drinking gasoline.
I can't get that ammo. How about you?
Neither can I. You're not gonna believe it. I found the files.
Which files?
Biggie's files.
Biggies.
The EP files.
Interesting.
The Steins files. Big Yahoo and the Stein are nearby.
I thought I saw some German grenades for a second.
Whoa. Yo, let's fuck with Ash.
How?
Where's Ash?
He's in this one over here.
Okay. Keep it on with me, okay? We're gonna tell Ash that we have to run off.
To run?
Yeah, because we were getting chased by a monster. But we're actually gonna be in the hangar.
I don't know if it's warm enough in the hangar. We can go over to this one. No.
Yeah, let me just go grab the other flare.
Wait, can we go in? Oh, we can't go in here.
Alright, I'm coming. Where are you?
Going into the
I'm gonna stay here.
other hangar. Oh, there's a couple flares here.
Yeah, I got one. It's a gosh darn shame, man. We could have stayed with Ash, but you know, we had to run.
Yeah.
See if he believes us.
doubt it.
Maybe. Might get lucky.
He's gonna be like, it's daytime. You don't need to run anywhere.
It's Diddy time.
Yeah, I'm not down for that.
You ain't got really much of a choice in this situation, buddy.
I do if I have a gun.
I have a radio.
What's that gonna do?
Oh, Cullen reinforcement.
Okay, okay. Well, I mean, I only need one bullet for you, and then, you know, for the rest of them, I mean, I don't think it's worth it, you know?
I'll call the big T right now. He's on his way. Word for word, he literally said, "I'm coming." Literally.
I don't actually see much of a revamp. I mean, I would have to go look at my old video, but
What do you mean? The game looks different.
a little bit.
Yeah, it does.
A little bit.
They really
I mean, I
took
thought it already looked good anyway.
they took full advantage of Unreal Engine this time.
You know, it does look good.
Mhm.
On a serious note, though, I don't think we should leave Ashton back here by himself. It's becoming nighttime, and then he'll actually die. Oh man, I really need that ammo.
I just threw a motion detector on Ashton.
You threw it on him?
Yep. So now we'll detect his motion. See how it's not beeping? 'Cause Ashton has no motion.
I don't think that's how it works.
What are you, the motion expert?
Well, yeah, actually, every single time we play this game, I figured that out since it's like the one from Alien, you know. Have you ever played that?
Yes.
Alien Isolation.
Yep.
Yeah, really good game. No, that's cool. When I shine the flashlight on him, I get a purple glitter in my visor.
Just in case.
Bro, he did not need to stay in the bathroom for this long.
Yo, what the fuck was that noise?
Yeah, I heard it too, and I think we're cooked.
I pissed myself just.
Oh, oh no, it has a flashlight. What the heck is that? It's coming in. It's coming in.
It's Ash. It's fucking dead.
Is it?
I'm out of ammo.
What the heck?
God damn, why
What
is
does
it?
it look like?
It looks like Ash.
It looks exactly like him. I don't like that. I heard something. There's something up there. That's the only entrance, right?
There's no. Yep, that's the only entrance. There's another thing coming in.
I can't see.
I haven't.
S7R. What does
I
that
can.
mean?
I can go out and be bait.
Nah. I've seen what's in these woods, and I don't think you wanna. I don't think you wanna go out there.
Is it a spitter?
No. It's much worse than that thing.
A vegan?
No. This thing eats strictly meat,
It's.
and
It's
you'll
a
see-
Democrat?
You can see where he. No, you can see where he puts that protein too.
Oh, no.
Trust me, once you see him, once you see him, like there's no escaping him. He's like he follows you everywhere, even during the day. So yeah. I
His
don't think you
meat's
wanna go
definitely
out there.
not bigger
Ashton's
than
just
mine.
sitting here. Nah, it is. It's probably the biggest. It's.
No one's got meat bigger than mine. Mine is about. So no.
I think you're about to see.
Oh no.
I don't think you liked what you said.
I will go turn back on the generator.
No, he's out there somewhere.
Wish me luck.
I can't see out there.
I'm going.
Ashton, come back.
I'll go.
We might not have to lie to him after all. I don't see anything. You?
No. Okay.
There are footprints by the
That's
ash
Ashton's.
double.
Oh fuck me, it's over there.
What? What is?
I saw something.
No.
Okay, I'm going. Turning it on. Turning it on. Push me luck. Is it on? No, it's not on. Fuck. I hear something crawling.
It's me.
Stop crawling. Ooh. Is it on?
No.
It doesn't want to turn on.
It,
Does it do that sometimes?
no, I'm
There you go.
okay. Now run, because it's gonna come back.
Hold up, I'm gonna distract it with a red flare.
Okay, Ash, you need to come back right now, or you're gonna die.
It doesn't take 600 bajillion years to fucking pee, bro. Should only take about 1 bajillion years.
Yeah, exactly.
We're so cooked, dude. We're so cooked. Hold my virtual hand. If we die, we die together. If we die, we die together. We're so fucked. We're so fucked. This is the only weapon I have.
What is it?
A pickaxe.
Oh no.
And I have a tank of gasoline. I'll throw that, actually. Distraction.
Actually, I don't know what happens if I shoot that.
President Trump. Gasoline. So fucked. So fucked.
Ashton?
Ashton should have dropped his
Actually,
fucking gun before he
might be
left.
fine. We might be fine.
Here's something walking in snow.
I
Okay.
don't.
I threw the gas tank right there, just in case. It's at least a defensive weapon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think the threat of a shotgun's gonna be enough?
No. Hello? Oh my god, a double came out of nowhere and we shot it in the head.
My fault, dude. I had like, it was real bad.
Hold up.
Uh-huh.
It was really bad. Liquid.
That's not good.
Ash,
Yeah.
We're so fucked.
we need to know all that.
It was like
I hear
really
something.
wet.
Ashton, be quiet. That's it. That's the apex.
It's a diddler. It's a diddler.
What are you guys?
I thought you-
freaking
I
out
thought you-
about?
I thought you said that you wanted to see which. I thought you wanted this. Context to see who is bigger.
Oh yeah, I do
I'm here
actually.
outside.
Hold up, I'm gonna throw. Hold up, I'm dancing. I'm dancing.
Oh my-
How do you
Look.
turn your brightness up?
I got this gas tank over there.
Well, go have your contest with him. He's definitely outside. Oh my god.
Oh
Oh,
fuck!
he's just running around this whole time. He's coming in. Here he comes.
Shoot the gas tank if you need to. Hold up, I'll throw a flare at him.
I actually think that works. I thought I saw it for a second.
I'm shooting at him with air.
I hear him.
Oh my
Oh my
god!
god, what is that? Did you kill it?
Oh my god!
I killed it.
I need to test my blood. I need to test my blood right now.
What the fuck is that yelling out there?
Wait, you're still in here?
We're gone. I'm turning on the power.
Where's the blood? Where's the blood?
In your body.
That's right. Come at me again.
What do you mean, come at me again?
I killed another one.
Dude, where's the blood test thing at? Oh, I think I'm cooked, guys.
Where are you?
Stay away from you guys.
Oh, oh my god. This is the other one I just decimated.
Alright, let's get onto a snowmobile. Let's get the fuck out of here.
You're on fire. Okay, you're good. You're good.
I'm at 69 warmth. Oh, let's hop indoors.
Push off. Oh god.
How do you
Oh,
turn on the
God.
fucking lights on this thing? How do you turn on the lights on this thing?
Let's go to the research center.
I'll follow you. Hold up, wait for me.
If you push M and click on the place you want to go, it will highlight it on your screen. So you don't have to.
Which one's-
follow.
Let's get some gas first.
I have a gun right
Oh my god.
No, this is not good. I don't like this.
It's not marking the fucking. There you go.
That's not him. That's not him.
Where are you guys?
Oh,
Just crash into something.
oh, this is bad, Ash. This is bad. The bridge is gone. Ashton, the bridge is gone.
Swim.
We have to run and jump.
Oh god, I fell into some
Oh.
water.
Oh my god, I felt like Tom Cruise.
Day one.
Day one.
I'm near the research center.
Okay,
be
we're
careful.
here.
If you see a bridge, you might fall into the water.
It's fine, I jumped through. I jumped across it.
Oh, okay.
I'm Himothy.
This is where we were earlier. This is like the same building we were at. Right?
Ashton, turn on the gin.
Fine.
Where's the fucking entrance?
It should just be straight from where you were.
I heard some screaming out there.
Oh my god, we're so cooked. Hide, boys.
Wait, there's some. Oh wait, Ashton, you said that you needed to be tested, right? There's a vaccine in
yeah.
here.
I'm probably like infected.
Yeah, you should really take that vaccine.
Get tested.
Where am I? Okay, where is it?
It was in there on the table.
I have the vaccine.
Oh, the testing thing's over here. The testing thing's in this back room, right here on this table.
What's this? What'd I just do? Oh, you guys didn't get the piece of evidence?
Yeah, I just collected one right now.
So did I. Where is it?
The testing thing's right here, my guy.
Where? Oh, here.
It's right there.
Okay, I plug myself.
Vaccine.
Now,
Okay,
vaccine.
Right there.
Stab him with it.
What's this? I already have one? I already had one. Cool. So we can save that one. Nice.
I'm infected.
No, I'm not
Report,
infected.
we have evacuation, no. We have about 54 minutes till nuke.
Oh, that's easy. That's easy.
Guys, I don't want to alarm anyone, but I sold the nuke, so we're fine.
What do you mean you sold the nuke?
I sold it to Iran.
Who has a shotgun?
I had a
I have
shotgun.
a shotgun, but I have no ammo. So.
I have ammo for the shotgun. I don't
Give,
know how to
give,
open my
give.
inventory. I forgot how to.
There's a way, right?
Yeah.
O-I-P-L-J-N, no, B-H-U-Y-T.
Oh, it's in the map. It's in the map here.
Oh yeah, okay, cool. Oh,
If there's enough for
hell.
both of you, there's enough for both of you.
Well,
Sure.
He didn't have a shotgun. Do you?
I had a shotgun. I'll go pick it back up.
Okay. So I'll give you. I don't know how much it drop. How much drops on one drop?
Like a whole entire like magazine, or like shotguns don't have magazines, so like one whole
Slug.
chamber. I don't know.
Drop the ammo.
Okay. Yeah. Here, so boom, boom.
Don't forget to get your perk here.
I think. Wait, can you get multiple?
Only one at a time. Only one at a time though.
You only have one perk at a time.
No, no. In terms of like area, like to pick it up. Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Where's
I
the
have
vending machine
cold-blooded military veteran and health regeneration.
Here we go. Oh wait, I already
Put your hands
have
up.
The GPS. I already have the GPS. You can only have the GPS.
No,
Wait,
reroll.
what? Reroll it.
Wait, how? Wait, what? I didn't see a reroll option.
It says reroll on there, right guys?
Oh wait, I already used the vending machine. I can't go back on it. Shoot.
Oh my
Sorry.
god.
Dumbass.
Anything cool up here? Any other?
No, there's literally nothing up here.
Are there a bunch of like those little orange thing, yellow little things around?
Okay, let's go to the church. We'll finally go to the church.
These looking new and empty. Fun.
Goodbye, Ashton.
Wait,
We're leaving you behind.
wait.
Oh, we'll walk if we have to.
I thought, is there not another one?
Oh, you looted these already?
There's nothing in it.
Oh, you can't climb them either. Very interesting.
Alright, next place we're going to is where?
The church.
That's hella far.
Let's go. Wait, where did you guys go?
Anyway, you walking?
Yeah.
Alright, the entrance
I'll be
is
fine.
here.
Oh.
My body's at 63 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's good.
Give me that in
It's,
normal.
it's like half red.
Oh, then you've been damaged. I mean, obviously. I mean, when it's blue, that's when you've got to worry. That's when you're starting to get cold. I say we get there before it hits night. I don't want to be out here at night.
Stop walking. Stop walking.
Boop, beep,
We're
bap,
gonna
boop.
swipe while we're here, walking.
All right, I'm 300 meters away.
I'm 400 meters.
You might not make it before night.
I'm 400 meters away.
I'm 200 meters away.
300 meters away.
Oh shoot, be careful, there's ice.
Fuck. They're in the game too. Next thing you're gonna tell me the moon landing's there.
This is good.
Okay, 100 meters away.
I'm 240.
I'm at 190.
I should be seeing the church literally in a few feet. I see it.
Oh, the ice is
It's-
sketchy.
It's is this a church? Oh yeah. Okay, yeah, we're good.
I'm
Okay, it's
6-7
not-
meters away. I'm 6-7 meters away.
How? Are you in front of me?
No. I can barely even
Oh,
see
yeah,
you.
somebody with a crowbar needs to knock the door down.
I'm actually
It's,
at 6-7 meters away.
It's slammed shut. Oh, never
Oh,
mind. We
yeah.
can open it for somebody that needs power to be opened.
Okay. Find a generator.
Trump sues
looks like
IRS and Treasury. Jesus Christ. There's a dog. There's a dog killing it. Oh my god, I was
Kill a
kidding.
dog.
I was fucking kidding, you madman.
You can't be too cautious, man. You gotta make sure. You gotta be. You gotta. It's a do or die. You know, do or die.
That would offend the Huz, bro.
There's a gas can over here.
I think the Huz would understand.
I think we need to put it inside the church as a trap.
I'd 2 sniper. Oh.
Next, we need to call a
It's kind of sucks.
Next, we have to call a congressman in here so we can entrap them. Yeah, we're so cooked, guys. We're so fucking cooked. We're so cooked. We're so
Give me a
cooked.
second. I'm gonna set this place up. We do have a. We're staying here for the night.
This
This is
house,
your dream, my guy.
this house is no longer holy.
Why?
Pentagrams on the ground.
Listen, you can fix this up, right?
You can clean it off. You can...
Let me flip the cross at the least, man. God has abandoned this fucking building. I can't be here. This is
Okay, there's a
sacrilegious.
vaccine in here.
I'm gonna go check the other house nearby. There's another flamethrower.
How much fuel does it have?
I don't know. I have a vaccine on me. I'm gonna come throw that. I'll come back and grab the flamethrower.
Alright, I've got it.
If we have 2 flamethrowers, then we should be golden.
It's 51.
What about the one inside the church?
20 something. 28?
That should help us. That should help us.
There's another one in that place, by the way, and there's an SMG here that has some ammo in it.
SMG where?
Right there.
Right here.
Guys, we might be.
Better than
Well-
a revolver or a sniper that has 2 ammo?
Obviously.
2 ammo is better than 0, bro.
Yeah, but this has 19.
2 is more than 0.
Okay, guys, if anything busts down that door,
Bust inside of it.
God help us.
Hold on, I'm gonna be right back.
I think I'm safe up here, guys. Ashton, you said that last time and you were gone for ages.
No, I mean like I'm in
You were
game,
you were gone for so long
Oh.
that the entire Renaissance came back and
I'm
left.
coming back. I'm coming back. I can't see
The
it.
Renaissance is here right now. Oh my god. Dude, the Renaissance is so pretty, right? And it's gone.
Ah, this guy.
Did you close the door?
Yeah, I closed the door.
Okay.
Oh, so
Nuh-uh.
hiding up here. I like that.
Hey. No, Ashton, I can't see now. I've lost my
Over here,
vantage
I'll
point.
just get behind you. I'll just sit here. I'll just
Coward.
like, sit right here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The
okay.
power just turned off. I can go
So,
turn it on.
Can we even open the door with that?
Don't open that door.
Oh god.
Shoot the thing!
Ashton needs a vaccine right now,
I
or
need
he's
help.
going to die.
There's a vaccine right there. There's a
We
vaccine
need
right
a
there.
vaccine.
You're so cooked,
It's coming
dude.
back. You ready?
Healed.
This is scary. I seen it walk by.
Someone keep the gas can inside of its your crosshairs.
Got it. The second that shows
I
up,
thought
I'm
you said-
shooting it. All right.
I thought you said inside your crotch for a second.
It's coming. It's fucking dead. Good job, boys.
It's dead.
I just heard the apex scream.
It took my SMG, bruh.
That's a sad
now
you.
now
man.
my health is up to my shoulders. I think I'm like a slap away from dying. You can
Ashton,
like paper cut.
Do you not have painkillers?
Let me test that theory. I'll slap you.
I have nothing.
That's actually bad. Okay, there's a good vantage point for me. There's something else out there. Something big.
Uh oh.
It's the vegans. What the fuck is?
It's a rhinoceros. It's dead. It's dead. Chill.
Hold fire! Hold fire! I'll go investigate
I
outside.
killed it with one shot.
Be careful with the fire.
I'm burning.
Oh god. He's oh my god, he's burning in a church.
Oh god. I'm going outside. Wish me luck.
He's never coming back.
Is
He's
that
never
SMG?
coming back. Ashton, you need to stop throwing your weapons, my guy.
Ashton, keep throwing your weapons.
Attacked me. No, it attacked me and it just throws it.
It's the thing. I've never had that happen.
There's a theory.
There's something behind me. There's something fucking behind me.
Nah, you You tripping? Over here.
I'm going back out.
Okay.
What's that fucking light? What's that fucking light? That's not me. Flashlight ahead. It's Ashton.
It's dead.
Ashton, why is there
Actually,
two
you
of you?
Swiss cheese a civilian.
Good.
I don't care. It wasn't me.
What was he? An impersonator? Huh?
Yeah, deserve to die.
Sometimes you're right.
When you're right, you're right.
Is that you?
That's me. That's me. Hold fire. Hold fire.
Ooh, your yellow looks a little off. Maybe I should shoot you.
Oh my god, dude, you're so right. Let me sneeze on you real quick. Dude, your pink looks different.
Okay. I don't trust this.
I don't like how there's no doors on this now.
Yeah, whose fault is that, Ash?
Yeah,
Not me.
Ashton.
Yeah, you walked right up to the door and then it broke through. That's your fault.
Tripping.
Lose the weight,
You should've
dumbass.
hidden me.
Come on. Can it be daytime yet?
Nice snack break.
Oh fuck. What the fuck was that noise?
Ashton.
I can footsteps.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
That's it. That's the big one. We need to get out of here, guys. Guys, quickly move past this.
Oh yeah, you can't shoot it anymore. Okay, shoot. Go, 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 go.
Where are we
I have
going?
no idea where to go.
Well, let's go right here.
Let's go to Inuit hideout. Move.
Okay, follow him. Follow the leader.
We're so dead.
Don't say
I
that.
want you guys to know that this is not my fault.
This is your fault.
No, I told you this would happen. That's the guy that
I have a bigger penis than him.
no.
It's bigger. It's mightier. It's girthier. And it's
I'd like to see you challenge him, but
much more
I don't
hairy.
think you would win.
Oh no, what do you mean by that? What,
I can't
water?
see. Wait, what? That did not look like water. Keep moving, keep moving. Oh, there's
It's-
a bridge here.
It's his no pool.
Is it broken?
A little bit.
No. No, I don't know what you're talking about. built
I
this
did
in 2
not-
hours.
I did not build this. This was not me.
It
My
looks like it broke in one day.
my contracting company would
No,
not
that was
do this
2
poor of a job.
Well, I did it with my bare hands.
My contracting company did it with magic.
That's impressive.
Thank you. We wear cool robes with pointy hats.
You know it's still following us, right?
Yep. I don't know where you went.
Hideout. In that hideout.
Well, yeah.
That tells me a lot. I haven't played this
Should.
game since like
I'm already
2024.
It's about 6 to 7 meters this way.
6,
Oh,
7?
we're so dead, by the way. This is not a good spot.
Come in.
Be advised, this
I
is a
just-
bad spot.
There is a vaccine in there, that room, so if any of you got hit, no.
I can grab the flare gun.
That's a good thing.
I'm gonna drop the pickaxe.
Okay, next I'm gonna go to Outpost 32. Oh, no, it's-
32 is the
I hear it.
Where's the output? Where's the hideout?
this way.
Guys, do not look behind you. Do not look behind you.
I'm looking behind me.
Oh my
There's
God.
5 people behind me.
It is the dealer.
Oh my god, his name is Red.
No. Pass me.
Look behind you. Now I'm the diddler. Come here, Red. You can't get
No,
away
I'm
from
good, I'm
us.
good.
We teamed up on
What do you
you.
mean from? What do you mean from us?
I teamed up with the diddler.
Nah. I'd like to see you give him a handshake before
We already did in secret.
before acknowledging that. No, I said I would like to see it with my own 2 eyes.
We did it on the big Tubec Island.
Interesting. It's
There's
interesting.
there's files about it.
Little files.
Yeah. I'm listed all over the place. Dude, he's right behind us.
Oh no, oh no.
Yeah, I know. Oh no.
Oh,
We're
God.
so dead. We're so dead.
Yeah, the guy's also run direction.
Oh, wait, wait,
We're so dead.
wait.
Hold on.
We got lucky. We got lucky. We got lucky.
Dude, he's right there. He's right there. His penis is out.
Generator.
Get the generator up.
I'm doing it.
I can't see.
I'm coming.
I've got your back though.
And run!
Oh shoot.
Oh my god. Okay.
Be careful. Be careful.
No traps in this room.
Open every door so when the power goes off, we don't have to worry about it.
I found 9 mil. I found 9 mil, boys.
I've got crazy 9 mil.
Hey, we got something outside. We got something outside.
Really?
Yeah, I heard something walking in the snow.
It might be you.
Testing myself for AIDS.
Do you have any?
Nope. AIDS free.
Surprising.
Fuck you mean
Oh,
about that?
wow.
Oh shit.
Taking a
dude,
picture
I'm
of
sorry.
the-
I need heals bad.
The
Ash.
kid that got diddled.
Yep,
He
him.
looks sad.
What?
Yeah, there was a kid that got diddled and he's on the ground.
How do you re-roll?
There should be a button that says roll
you-
again.
You click re-roll.
I don't
Gentlemen, I don't want to alarm anyone, but there's noises outside.
Hey! Help me! Ah! Ash, help me!
He's fucking deceased.
Oh shoot!
I have no bullets.
Let me see if I've been infected. I'm not. Guys, I'm not infected.
Guys, we have to leave, don't we?
Yeah.
Get the
You guys did
fuck.
not tell me that he was literally
Dude,
like,
he's
right here.
dude, he tried nutting in my ass, bro.
I almost got killed by the other guy.
Dude,
Wait,
if I get attacked by
it's-
one, I'm so dead.
How many pieces do we have? We have 4. We can distract if we want to.
Okay.
I think we should go to the other. Actually, no wait. We should go to the lumber yard.
I agree.
Graveyard is where? That's so far.
Uh,
Jesus. All right. Sure.
Let's get to running then,
We
boys.
should extract. He's about to wake up.
He's up. He's up and he smells
My
Ashton.
pain tolerance is really high.
He smells Ashton and he knows Ashton's submissive.
Last one to get to, you know, last one to get to the lumberyard gets diddled.
What?
I'm
that's not
I'm
how-
immune from that one actually.
No.
I'm the only one here immune from the diddling. Cause I do the diddling.
I mean, wait, what?
I am
I
the
don't think,
diddling.
Just three Pokemon.
No, I'm not.
I'm the diddler of New York.
The New York diddler.
The 2 other ones are kind of MIA, so someone had to step up.
The 2 other ones.
Where the fuck did Diddy go? I don't know.
Ashton, that's water.
Ashton, jump in the water.
Ashton, you're not swimming to that ice. You're not swimming to that ice, my guy.
There's ice here?
Oh shoot. Oh shoot. All the way around. I think we're all about to get diddled.
Well, yeah, I'm in the circle. Come here. I'm about to tell you why the moon landings never actually happened. Ashton, something crazy happened today.
Oh no.
The Salem witch trial started back in my backyard.
No.
Oh shoot.
Yes.
Also, I've been cooking a little bit. The sun doesn't exist. It's
Okay.
actually just someone holding a giant flashlight over a paper plate.
Okay. Okay.
Paper plate.
Yep. Also, gravity's not real. We're just imagining it.
Oh.
How'd you explain that one?
Don't worry about it. Just know, Isaac Newton's a fraud. So Isaac
Uh-huh.
Newton attached weights onto all of our ankles with the like invisible weights. That's why. Go on, ask me another
So you
question.
think if you remove those restraints, you can jump like crazy?
No, we literally fly around like creative mode Minecraft. Go on. Try to disprove me.
It looks like you're gonna get diddled.
By the way, fun fact. The Earth is no longer shaped like a pyramid. I changed my mind. It's actually shaped like an octagon. So,
And how did this
Uh-huh.
huh?
How did you think of this one?
Don't worry about it. I got really high. What do you think I do after eating Taco Bell? Before eating Taco Bell?
Like you get high before and after.
Yeah, and I did it at work too. It's legal. I have
Ashton, how cold are
glaucoma.
your feet getting?
6'7".
That's my thighs now.
Yeah, they're
I'm still
about.
only at my feet because I'm cold-blooded.
Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck.
Well, my health is at my chin. Actually, yeah, it's at my chin. So I'm
Chinny
cold.
chin chin. Your
Oof.
chinny chin chin.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm not getting diddled.
Let me do the evac. Let me do the evac. I got a Percocet.
You know?
What does a perk set say?
I can diddle faster.
I don't know if I like that perk or not.
Turning on the generator.
Okay. Definitely on the computer.
Let me know when you find it.
I feel like we've been here before.
It's on B. Oh yeah, it is in the computer. Alright, I'm doing it.
Alright, go man. Where are you? There you are.
On the evac.
Alright, I'm defending spawn. Oh yeah, there's a perk machine.
Failure. Satellite needs to be. Oh, the satellite.
Oh shoot.
We didn't do the satellite.
We're so dead. Okay, I have a good idea. One of us goes and.
I'll go do the
Okay,
satellite. I'll go do the
Ashton,
satellite.
I believe in you.
No, I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay, Ashton, you stay here.
No, I have less health.
Okay. Good luck, soldier.
Exactly.
Just stay here.
I'm gonna summarily
Well,
execute
if
Ashton.
Ashton dies, then
Oh my god, the big guy's here.
where?
I don't. Oh god. Near the helicopter, near the Chinook, I'm dead.
No, you're not.
I am. I just died. He just like diddled me.
Oh shoot.
What the?
Oh shoot.
Die!
I'm now one of his diddle disciples.
Hey!
That's me. That's me.
come back.
That's me. That's me.
You diddle monster.
That's me, bro. I'm just trying to escape too, bro. I'm just trying to escape too, bro. It's me.
Nah, you're a diddler now.
Oh.
After you stay there, you don't come back. You were dead.
Come on, potato sauce. I'm not gonna hurt you. Swear to God, bro.
No, you stay away from me. Stay away from me.
Come on, potato cheese, potato sauce. You want to be friends with me, bro? Come on.
No. I don't feel like getting diddled. No, stay away from me. Oh, what the heck is that? Oh, I think I'm seeing things.
Come on, don't kill me, potato cheese. You know you want me to stay alive. I can tell you where the opposition is.
No, I already know he's on me.
Who's gonna be on you?
No, Ashton, no. Wait, there's the same game that we played earlier? What? Ashton, stay at vehicle storage. Go meet me at vehicle storage.
Why?
Okay? Because if you don't, you'll get
Satellite up now?
diddled.
Wait. Dude, there's only one switch at the satellite.
Ashton, there's one below too.
How can you get this all the same, man? There are no other places.
I'm on my way.
Nowhere.
Are you sure?
Whoa!
Jesus Christ. That's chill
I
out.
didn't know that was gonna be you. I didn't know you were so close. This is the one I just flipped.
Okay, then where's the satellite?
I ate it.
No, no.
Right here.
Oh, okay. Gotta get up
We're
this
about to
one.
get diddled, by the way.
No, we're not.
Yeah, that's right. I did all the work. Alright.
Okay. He's on now.
Okay, so now let's move to research center. Oh,
Oh fuck! You killed me.
that scared me so bad.
Research center, research center.
We'll make sure to spawn you in before we get out of here.
Thank you.
Bro, I come down and I thought the noise I heard was Ashton, and I look to my left and I see this humanoid creature walking on all fours.
It was me, the diddler.
Ashton, where'd you go?
Behind you.
I'm following you.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I am. Right there. See you.
We're going to a research center, right?
Yeah.
I keep forgetting you can see way further than I can.
Not that far.
Be careful,
anymore.
there's water. Oh shoot. There has to be a bridge nearby.
You can barely see his car anymore.
There is. I ate it.
Oh, this bridge.
Oh no!
Come on, come
Ashton, I'm dead! I'm dead! Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, you're fine. How'd you miss that?
Uh,
Come on, man.
I didn't. I made it, but then I corrected, and it almost got me killed.
Diddler in the roof.
I can't see.
Just turn on the
Ashton, get
lights.
Power on.
Ashton, don't let him tell you what to do.
Okay, you're back.
Almost 95%. Thank you for telling me, Ender. I'm so fucked this weekend.
We up.
I think my
Okay,
24-hour
Ashton,
stream
you-
is happening this weekend.
Oh shoot. Okay, get ready, get ready, get ready. Oh! No.
I don't want to alarm you, but you're on fire.
I'll be fine. Ashton, do not attack me, okay? I will get you back, I promise.
Gonna attack you, huh?
Just don't, and I'll make sure you come back as a human, okay?
He's lying to you.
No. I promise you, Ash. No! Ashton, I almost got you guys back. Listen to me.
Holy fuck, the diddler lost.
There's more there!
Are there more?
Please, please, just let me get this icon.
You're not gonna be able to.
I'm not feeling too good, guys. I'm not feeling too good. Any minute, the diddler will be here to claim my soul. Just like he claimed your guys's. My friends are dead.
All my friends are dead. The diddler's literally coming.
No!
Oh my god, he just turned off the power.
Oh god. Only ditto. Only ditto.
I just recalled you guys.
Did you?
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Who's outside at the gym?
Me.
Oh, he's back in us.
It's okay.
Keep him away. Keep him away. Yes.
He just
Yes.
cooned.
Please.
He just gooned inside of me. He just gooned inside of me instead.
Evac helicopter.
He just diddled me. How am I still
Good
alive?
job, soldier. Wait. Are you good? Here, take this. Just in case. Oh, we're so dead.
I just respawned. What do you mean?
Ashton, stay inside. Stay inside. He's gonna come running in here any second.
No, I'm still alive.
Go find a weapon.
Gentlemen, I'm clutching.
Are you alive? Guys, he's down. He's down. He's down. Here.
Is he?
No, take this. Take this.
Just get in. Just get inside. Just get inside. Helicopter doing?
Oh my god. I'm dead.
Oh my God.
I'm dead. I'm dead. No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't have a gun.
Helicopter. Evac, people. Evac. Move, 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 move. We need to get out of here. Everybody get inside.
I'm in.
Okay.
Oh my god, we got out. We got out.
You're welcome.
Oh.
I didn't get infected at all.
I didn't get infected either.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I didn't get infected. What are you talking about, my guy?
Not for me.
Okay, I think
Danny
that's
got
it for me.
infected.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Holy
That
peep.
was bro, I like this game a little too much and it's scary. It's scary. Something about the snow and just mutated creatures being out there and there's nothing you can do. Like
There is one thing you can do.
Diddle back.
join them?
Yep.
Join them? Nah, I'm good. I'm good.
You
I'd
both.
rather use the last bullet on myself.
Why?
Because I don't want to get turned into one of those things.
But you can diddle with it.
I don't want to deal with it. I don't
You
want
could be
to.
the Diddy.
No, I don't want to become the apex.
Yes, you do.
Oh,
The greatest achievement a person can get.
you know what's crazy? I didn't die one time besides when Ashton blew me up.
Real.
Wow. Wow. We'll go with that.
We'll need to change that.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
One more round, gentlemen.
Okay.
One more round.
No, that was it for me. You guys
That was it?
can if you want.
Well, I'm over
Yeah.
too, bro. We get in bed.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Nice stream.